Okay, my friends, we talked extensively yesterday about the stunning results in Michigan. It is now obviously official. Abdel El-Sayed has won. He will now be the Democrat nominee for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. He'll be facing Republican candidate Mike Rogers. It's not just that El-Sayed won. It's that the DSA practically swept the table. It doesn't matter in what state, in what race, the establishment got absolutely, the Democratic establishment got absolutely destroyed. Their doors were blown off by the rising tide of DSA communists. Now, New York City is already under the rule of the Democratic Socialists of America through the Islamo-communist Zoran Mamdani. And New York is already failing. The murder rate is going up. Crime is up. Homelessness now is spreading like a cancer across the city. Already now, he is attacking Jews. He is targeting white neighborhoods. He's targeting middle working class neighborhoods. And now he's implementing what he vowed he would do during the campaign. And this is what I mean by what I say, the first wave of communism has begun. City-run, or to be more accurate, government-run grocery stores. They're going for the food supply and food distribution. And so what Mamdani has now done is, and by the way, this is going to cost taxpayers billions, and I mean billions of dollars. Everything that he's doing is going way over budget. Even New York Democrats are now fretting, saying that what you're seeing, the kind of absurd spending, this out of control where the government is subsidizing and spending way beyond its means, is going to eventually bankrupt the city of New York. But it doesn't matter. He is taking taxpayer money and he's using it to subsidize his grand scheme. And his grand scheme is in the very platform of the Democratic Socialists of America, which is they want government to implement food, to control the food supply, to have government-run stores. Eventually, they want to collectivize agriculture in the United States, the way it was done under Mao's China or Stalin's Russia. But that's a couple steps down the road. The first step is they want to get rid of all private grocery stores slowly, one by one, and have government-run grocery stores, as you see in Cuba, in Venezuela, in places everywhere communism has been tried. And so Mamdani now, there is going to be 5, they're starting with 5, but they're going to expand, 5 government-run grocery stores. It is going to be subsidized by taxpayers. What they're going to do is they're going to offer now not free food, but cheap food. And as Mamdani said, basic staples will be 30% cheaper at these government-run grocery stores. Bread will be 30% cheaper. Fruits, vegetables, milk, eggs, everything will be 30% cheaper. Well, Jeff, how do you make everything 30% cheaper? Because you can't make money on that. Of course, you subsidize it. You have other people's money pay for the fact that now every single one of these government-run grocery stores is going to lose money. But it gets even worse. In order to have, think about it, if everything is going to be 30% cheaper, you've got 2 problems. Number one, how do you prevent people from going into these city-run grocery stores, these Mamdani stores, and just saying, I don't know, let me buy 50, 50 cartons of eggs, and then I just resell it and make a profit, make a quick buck, whatever. Buy clean out all the chips. from the chips aisle. And then it's 30% cheaper, and then I resell it, and I make a quick profit. You see the problem? So they don't know how to deal with that. Then they got the other issue, which is, isn't this supposed to be for the people of New York City? Aren't they the ones who are supposed to benefit? In particular, as Mamdani said, minority low-income areas. That's where these government-run grocery stores initially are going to be rolled out. They want to roll it out everywhere because eventually they want no private-run grocery stores. Well, now think about the problem. What if people from outside New York City say, you know what? That sounds like a good deal. 30% cheaper on everything? I'll go there and shop. Or people out of state say, that's a good deal. And they go shopping. Well, then they're going to clean out the shelves and it won't benefit the people of New York City. You see the problem? Now, look at it from the competitors. Private grocery stores. Already some of them have closed. Why? They're like, I can't compete. If they're going to lower the prices artificially 30%, I'm going out of business. I can't compete with that. Profit margins for grocery stores are like 3 to 4%. So you drop prices artificially 30%, you're going to wipe out private grocery store owners. So now you're going to have fewer food choices and fewer places to go to buy groceries because these private grocery stores are now all going bankrupt one by one. You see how the problems are starting to pile up. Well, communists, and this is communism. This is what happens. So they have now given the typical communist response to these problems of supply and demand. Remember, supply and demand is an iron law of economics. Supply and demand goes back thousands of years. It's rooted in human society. It's rooted in human nature. It doesn't matter. It transcends culture, civilization, religion. It's the basic laws of supply and demand. Communists always think they can destroy it or transcend it or get rid of it. They can't. So, but they have the same answer. Here it is. So, to deal with all these problems, Mamdani now is rolling out, I swear to you, you need to have ID. An ID card. Because they have to track you. So now you have to show ID, city-issued ID, in order to access these so-called government-run grocery stores. Because then they can prevent people from outside New York City, in theory, from buying. And they can also prevent people from outside the state buying. But now they got another problem. If people are going to come in and buy and then make and resell or make a quick buck, well, guess what? Now they have to limit your purchases. You can only buy 1 quart of milk. You can only buy 1 loaf of bread. You can only buy 1 carton of eggs. You can't buy 2, you can't buy 3, you can't buy, no, 1 bag of chips, not 2, not 3. They start to limit, mandatory limits on what you can buy. And now Mamdani is rolling out ration cards. Ration cards. You're only allowed to buy so much food a week. You're only allowed to buy what they tell you you can buy. You come in for a loaf of bread. Let's say you have a couple teenagers. They make themselves sandwiches. That's my Ashton. He loves peanut butter and blueberry jam. I don't know how this guy can wolf down so many of them, but he does. And you go, oops, I got to go back. Couple days later, sorry, your ration card, you only get 1 loaf. Bye. So you now have already, the thing just got off the ground. Already, you've got long lines. People are waiting for hours to get their groceries. Shelves are already going empty. And they must show ID. Now, 2 points, and then I want to open it up to you. 617-266-6868. I thought it was racist to have to show photo ID when it came to voting. But look at this hypocrite. Look at this freaking fraud. And remember, this directly targets minority low-income areas. So if low-income minorities have to show proof of ID in order to buy food, and by the way, everything in life, you need ID now. Everything. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay, as I said now, the Democratic Socialists of America are rising. This is now their moment, they believe. And Mamdani, already elected last year, is now going to, as far as he's concerned, implement the first wave of what he calls his communist revolution. And this is now going to be government-run or city-owned grocery stores. Now, I just want to stress again that the scheme for this is that it would sell basic staples, fruits, vegetables, cereal, eggs, bread, milk, orange juice, water, you name it, whatever. About 30% below market cost. So, I mean, in other words, they want to undercut all private grocery stores and artificially keep prices below the market level, subsidized by the taxpayers. Now, what's going to happen is, it's already happening, it's driving these private grocery store businesses, the real grocery stores, out of business because they can't compete. As I said, their profit margin is 2, 3, maybe 4%. They can't cut their prices 30, 40% to compete with these city-owned grocery stores because they're going to lose money hand over fist and they go kaput, they go bankrupt. Now, the larger problem is how do you make sure that these discounted goods are actually being bought by the people that it's supposed to help, these low-income minority people in these areas in New York City? Well, as I said, in other words, it won't be bought for resale. They're not just going to buy it, resell it, make a quick buck, or, as I said, people outside the city or outside the state. Well, you have to track them. That's what they do in every communist country. So they have to start to they need to identify and then start to follow, surveil, and keep track of their customers. How often do they come in? What are they buying? How much are they buying? And, of course, then you have to have ration cards. So they now have to show ID, photo ID. You want to talk about a phony and a fraud? So all of these low-income minority people apparently, oh, no, you ask ID to vote. Oh, that's racist. Oh, you're asking the impossible. Well, not everybody has ID. I mean, come on. Well, apparently you need ID. When you wanted people to shovel snow in the wintertime, you had to show not one but 2 forms of ID. This phony, this fraud. Now, if you want to access the food, the discounted food at the city-run grocery store, you got to show again ID. And what it is it's a ration card. And you're only allowed to buy certain products, certain quantities, and if they don't have them on the shelves, which is already happening, well, too bad. Too bad for you. Already, there are lines of several hours. Already, they're running out of food. And more importantly, they're tracking you. As many Venezuelans, and I know many of them are in Florida, but you got a good chunk of them in New York. The Venezuelans have now come out saying, we saw this with our own eyes under first Chavez and then Maduro. You had government-run grocery stores. And then you had to have a national ID in order to go and access those stores. And they were effectively ration cards. They knew who you were. They knew what you bought. They knew what you ate. And they tracked you and surveilled you. And usually the stores where the shelves were bare, there wasn't much left, and you were waiting hours to get food. Already now, it's, what are we, barely a couple of weeks into his program. Already it's happening in New York City. Now, what is most disgusting is that rather than announce the need, they're calling it now like a library-esque ID card. They're trying to soften it up. No, it's a ration card. Okay, it's an ID ration card. That's what they're giving out. They're saying, well, think of it more like a library card. You know, like it's got your name and your address and your photo but you know, it's like when you want to go, you know, borrow books from the library. It's the same thing. This disgusting Marxist Muslim, this fraud from Uganda, didn't have the guts to announce the need for ID for his government-run grocery stores because he knows, because he's a devious, cunning little commie, that this clip would be played over and over again because he's going on about how voter ID is so racist. So he had his aide. By the way, the one that believes private property should be abolished. Okay, that's the one that's implementing this program. She literally believes that private property needs to be completely eradicated and abolished. I.e., your home, the state takes it. Your car, it's all controlled by the state. All your personal possessions, the state. So your apartment, no, government. So that's who's now calling the shots for the food supply in New York City. He has her go in front of the cameras and say, if you want the food, you got to get this ID card, this ration card, or else no food for you. Roll cut 18, Mike.
New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani is requiring an ID to access his government-run grocery stores. What then is your message to Democrats who do not want to pass the Save America Act and ensure, ID at the ballot box?
When was this announced? This was just announced.
Yeah.
I heard about it. Yeah. Well, I wish they'd have an ID to access the voting booth. You know,
no, Mike, that's 18A. Mike, that's 18A. That's President Trump. I want Mamdani. Cut 18. Okay, so apparently there's a problem. All right, Mike, no worries. We'll get that fixed. I'm going to play you the cut. So my question to you is this. I want to start taking calls. I'll play you the cut. They're just admitting you need an ID and you need a ration card. Okay, but I want you to hear it from themselves, out of the proverbial horse's mouth. Okay, we're still working on that Mamdani cut. There's some problem with the computer, but we're going to get it fixed. Trust me, okay, and we'll play it, I promise. Basically, Mamdani is saying, yes, you need to have ID in order to participate in this program. And it's a ration card. And then he hands it over to his top aide, the one who believes that she's a communist, a straight Marxist. She's a big admirer of Marx and the Communist Manifesto, self-admitted. She's on record. And she says private property needs to be eliminated in the United States, abolished, and that the government should take over all the means of production. That means every level of society and the economy should be completely controlled by the state, as was happened under China and Soviet Russia and Cuba and North Korea and Venezuela, and I could go on and on. So she's the one then that comes out and says, if you're going to buy food, you're going to have ID, like a library card. And we are going to track you as you come in, as you leave. And we're only going to allow people from New York City. So this is, in other words, we're going to make sure that only people from designated areas are able to get to the food. And then you're only allowed to buy so much. because we want to prevent as much as possible profiteering, as they call it. They don't want people to resell it for a quick buck. So my question to you, number one, do you support government-run grocery stores? Do you believe they should be in every city, in every town, across the entire country? That is now what the Democratic Socialists of America, that's part of their key platform, that's what their candidates are running on, and that's what they're winning on. So radical Democrats now are pushing for the nationalization of grocery stores. And New York City is their grand experiment. Should we have government-run grocery stores? I think it is lunacy. You're playing with the food supply. It is going to lead to rationing. It is going to lead to long lines like you saw in the Soviet Union and other places, like in Cuba or Venezuela. And in the end, people are going to start to go hungry. And it is going to bankrupt private grocery stores. And so what's going to happen is food is going to become more scarce. And the only place you can get it from is the government. And I'll tell you this, Mamdani won't be getting his food from city-run grocery stores. Neither will Bernie Sanders. Neither will AOC. Neither will Abdul El Sayed. I trust me. And neither will, Biden's family or Hillary's family or Kamala Harris. The apparatchiks, the elites, they will have personal, private grocery stores for them and their families. Because that's how it worked in Venezuela, in Cuba. They're not, hey, come on, they're too important. They're not going to wait 3-4 hours in line. And then there's only a couple of pieces of meat left in the butcher shop, or, you gotta choose from, a couple pears here or a couple of celery sticks there. No. For them, they get the private stuff, the good stuff. It's for the peasants. You get the government, the government rationing. So my question to you, are we now making a fundamental mistake? And is this going to lead to rationing of food and more hunger, starvation? God forbid, private grocery stores getting out of New York, many of them going under, financially bankrupt. And is this going to lead eventually to a food crisis in the United States, as it has led in every other communist country in the history of the world? 617-266-6868. Paul on the Cape. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm a big admirer of your program. I have been for a long time.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. You're going to kick us off today. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, who needs Mandami-run grocery stores if we can have Dollar Tree-run grocery stores instead? Dollar Tree and its predecessors, like All for $1 and Benjamin Franklin, a variety store, we already invented what Mandami is trying to do decades before he was even born. We don't ask for Russian ID or ration anything. We have no limits to what you can buy, and it's all cheaper than the grocery stores. And we're capitalists. We're not communists. Okay, so Mandami can go whatever, because his ideas were already invented before he was born.
Well, Paul, you're making an excellent point. There's a place called, I know you're talking about Dollar Store, and believe me, my kids love the Dollar Store, and my wife too. And you can get great stuff at the Dollar Store for really, really affordable prices. And the Dollar Store still makes money. I mean, I know the profit margins are low, but they're making money. You're right. It's private enterprise. It's capitalism. If you want to go into food, it's Aldi. Aldi's one that really very, very affordable. And, and it's still, they manage to make, again, the profit margins are very thin, very narrow, but they still make money. So you're right. There are private areas, private stores that you can make, they still are profitable and give you an incredible deal. Paul, what Mamdani is doing is something much worse. He's going to the dollar store. He's going to Aldi. He's going to all these places and saying 30% less. Whatever someone else is charging, 30% less. In other words, way below market cost. Way below. So the grocery stores are losing money. That's the entire idea. And you say, well, Jeff, if they're losing money, how do they stay in business? The government, using our money, subsidizes them, props them up. Now, eventually, this can't work. I mean, eventually, everything goes bankrupt. But the goal is to get the dollar store out of business, to get Aldi's out of business. Okay, never mind Stop and Shop and Big Y and Shaw's and Kroger's and, whatever, because we have listeners all over the country. So whatever grocery store chains are near your home. Safeway, I know they're big out in Maryland and Virginia. So what I'm saying is the goal is to bankrupt every private grocery store, every dollar store, because who can compete with 30, 40% less? But the problem is then there's nothing on the shelves. But now you don't have a choice. In other words, what's going to happen is they're already calling them, it's called food deserts, where they're like, no, we can't, there's no grocery store. I go, what do you mean there's no grocery store? We have to drive miles and miles and miles and miles because all the private businesses are saying, we can't compete with this. I can't. It's impossible. I'm going to lose my shirt. So, Paul, it's a deliberate strategy to make food less accessible, to have people go to these government-run grocery stores because the private competition has been wiped out, and then everybody is dependent upon the government for their food. And then they own you. They completely control you. And I'm telling you, Paul, they're already talking about this. Americans eat too much. Americans overall are obese. They're overweight. So, yeah, why should they have 2 loaves of bread a week? Or 2 boxes of cereal a week? Or whatever. No, lose some weight. Hey, fatso. No, 1 loaf. One jug of milk. That's it. Too bad. Well, you're hungry? Like in Cuba or Venezuela. Just wait till Monday. And then come back with your ration card and wait 3-4 hours in line, and you'll get your jug of milk and your loaf of bread. The thing about communism, it is the greatest diet program in the world. Forget, all these other diet plans, okay? Just forget them. Nobody makes you lose weight more than communists because you're all going hungry. As people from Cuba and Venezuela say, look at them. They're all skin and bones. Believe me, there's no obesity problem there. I can tell you that. And that's the point. Do you support government-run grocery stores? Democrats are an enthusiastic yes. I say these people are insane, but that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Okay, we now have the cut. So this is Mamdani announcing now these government-run grocery stores. Notice, though, he leaves the part about the need for ID. He won't announce it because he knows it's going to be played. The clip is going to be played over and over again because he's been leading the charge against voter ID. Because, frankly, he stole the election. There's more information coming out. I talked about it last week, but now there's even more. The audit continues, and it's obvious now that Mamdani stole the election, and he is the illegitimate mayor of New York. That's why he's against voter ID. Okay, but let that go. Just let that go. So he doesn't want to be caught having to defend ID to get food for, primarily low-income minority areas. So he passes it off to his Marxist aide, the one who says we need to abolish private property completely, and that she says she's a huge admirer of the Communist Manifesto. So here, first him, then her, roll cut 18, a mic.
How are you going to keep people from taking advantage of that, that deal, basically? And is there going to be a limit on the number of items that someone can take that are discounted at that level from that essential basket?
So our RFP makes very clear that this is a program for New Yorkers to be able to put food on the table, not a program for people to be able to make a quick buck through reselling. I'm going to pass it over to our EDC head, GPAC, to add some additional details.
Yes, if you look at our RFP for the operator, we are looking to make sure that we target New Yorkers, whether it be at sort of a library card-esque thing, and also we manage who's buying, and that is focused on everyday New Yorkers. So we are mindful of that, and so we're going to make sure that we have all the things in place to ensure that that does not happen.
There you go. So they have to track you, they have to surveil you, and it's not a photo ID. No, it's a kind of a library-esque card. It's sort of like, having a library card. That's all it is. No, it's ID and it's a ration card. That's what it is. Now, many of you are texting the Kuhner man, emailing the Kuhner man, messaging the Kuhner man, saying, oh, well, Mamdani backtracked, Jeff. He said there's going to be no ID, no ID, no ID. Yeah, they're just changing the name. It's a savings card, a supermarket savings card. That's what they're calling it. Or, as she just said, a library-esque card. It's got your picture. It's got your name. It's got your address. It's an ID card. Okay? I mean, they can, Mamdani can say it's not an ID card till the cows come home. But if it's got your face, and it's got your name, and it's got your address, because how else are they going to prevent people from outside New York City from coming in and taking advantage of this? And obviously, they want to limit the purchases because they don't want people to resell it. So they're going to start already with the rationing. Now, I'm telling you, it's already a disaster, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And you know who's going to end up getting screwed? The very same low-income minority population that they're allegedly trying to help. Primarily black people, brown people, whatever. Okay? Poor whites, anybody who lives in these areas. You want to know why? Because they're not going to have private grocery stores to go shopping. And by the way, remember, many of these people are on SNAP, what used to be called food stamps. Well, you go to your private grocery store, they accept SNAPs, they accept SNAP, they accept your food stamps. So you can, if you want to buy cereal, food stamps will cover it, milk, eggs, bread, peanut butter, fruits, vegetables, whatever. Now that's gone because those businesses have left and more are going to be leaving. More grocery stores are going to leave. So you have less food choice and less availability or access to food. So now you're stuck with the city one, the Mamdani run grocery store. So what do you think is going to happen? The lines are only going to get longer. And the shelves are going to get barer quicker. And this is, by the way, this is classic Cuba, classic Venezuela, classic Soviet Union, classic Eastern Europe. You wait, and there's hardly anything on the shelves. There's no food selection, there's no choice, there's no variety. You get the scraps, and you should be happy you get the scraps. And by the way, it's a massive boondoggle. It's a massive waste of money. Now, what do you think happens then? Do the commies say, because remember now, you're dealing with Bill in Sudbury and Chris in Gloucester. You're dealing with that level of mind, okay? So instead of saying, whoa, we're violating the basic laws of supply and demand, they don't understand supply and demand. It's beyond them. So instead of saying, it was so much better with private grocery stores. I mean, the aisles are full, the vegetable stands, the fruit stands, the deli counters, it was just the meat section, it was all full. And you could choose what you like, what you don't like, according to your budget. No. This is what they're going to say. They're already using the language. These are profiteers, wreckers. These are people now that are, stealing from the system. So, what's the problem? Well, now the problem is it's the farmers. It's the meats, the chicken plants and the meat plants. Why are they making a profit off of selling food to the grocery stores, to these city-run grocery stores? Why aren't they making more chickens and more beef and sending more produce? Because why are the shelves bare? The shelves should be constantly full. No. Now we have to take over the farms and the meat plants and the chicken plants. You see how it goes? Because now the party, the government, the state, no. We're going to run it better. And we're going to sell it cheaper. And then, of course, what do you think that happens? Then you've got collectivization of agriculture, which, by the way, is another key plank in the Democratic Socialists of America. And what everybody forgets, in the 2024 election, look it up, one of Kamala Harris's policy platforms was to, quote, eventually collectivize agriculture in the United States. When I saw that, I couldn't believe it. That's when I said she's clearly a front for the Chinese Communist Party. Collectivization of agriculture and land is a fundamental Marxist communist policy. Now when you start messing with the country's food supply, because every time this has been tried, every time in human history, it leads to famine, food shortages, and eventually starvation. Every single time, take it to the bank. And I speak from experience because my grandfather, God bless his soul, was a small peasant farmer in what is today Croatia, then the former Yugoslavia. And when the communists took over, and by the way, communism is theft. Socialism is theft. Mamdani is a thief. El Said is a thief. Bernie, AOC, Ilhan Omar, they're crooks, they're thieves, they're criminals. Because it's all based on theft. They literally confiscated my grandfather's land, his home, his vineyard, everything. Okay? They stole it from him. And then they collectivized it. But they told the former owners, well, now you're just going to be like employees. And you're going to work on the land, but it's no longer yours. And so my grandfather told me the story. He goes, so we come in, the land has all been taken from us. And, now it's a big, sort of like an agricultural collective. And now you have apparatchiks who run it, like Mamdani. Okay, like El Said, like AOC, like Bernie. People who have no clue about farming, agriculture, supply and demand, free enterprise. In fact, they never got their hands dirty. They never planted a single crop in their entire life. Most of them, as my grandfather said, they came from these commie-indoctrinated universities in the city. He goes, they never cooked a chicken in their life. Okay, grab a chicken, pluck the chicken, kill the chicken, whatever. Eat the chicken. No. So he comes in with his tie, of course, with the communist uniform, and he tells all of these farmers whose land has now been collectivized. My grandfather's looking at this, and he says, I want you to know we're going to treat you workers humanely because we're about the working class. And these poor peasants like my grandfather are looking at each other like, well, what does he mean? You just took everything we owned. our little small plot of land that our families have had for centuries. You're going to work 9 to 5. You're not going to be exploited. It's going to be an 8-hour day. I swear the farmers are looking at each other like, what? He said, and you're all going to have coffee breaks. You're going to, what was it, 10:30, 10:45, 3 o'clock, whatever. He goes, you're going to have 2 guaranteed designated coffee breaks, and we're going to give you half an hour for lunch. And he thought they were all going to get up and go, clapping, bravo, comrade, bravo, long live the motherland, communism forever. Okay? Like these idiots, like Bill and Chris in Gloucester. My grandfather told me we right away made a decision we have to leave. Pretty much everybody in the room said, we're getting the hell out of here. I don't know how. We're going to America. We're going to Canada. We're going to Australia. Who will ever take us, we are out of here. Because this place is going to collapse. These people are idiots. People are going to starve. Why? Because as my grandfather said, when you're farming the land, there's no 8-hour shift. The sun rises at 4, you get up with the sun. You work all day till dusk. You work because that's what the plants or the crops or the produce or the fruits or the whatever you're farming, that's what the land needs. That's what the land gets. So he said, there's no 8-hour shift. You work according to the cycles of the land and of nature and of farming. Now, in the winter, you work a little bit less, but in the spring and the summer, and especially in the harvest, you work 12, 14, 16-hour days. Because you go by the cycle of agriculture. Not by some diktat from some central committee and, by some idiot from the capital city or from the regional town. And they right away said, you're going to see food shortages. The crops are not going to grow. They're going to have bad harvests. There's going to be shortage of food. They're going to keep most of the food for themselves. And the peasants are going to starve, which is pretty much what happened. We got to get out of here. As my grandfather said, I don't want to starve to death. It's bad enough they took everything I ever had. But now they're going to have me starve? I don't think so. Now, that's eventually what happens. That's why, and the DSA communists are already anticipating this. So ask them, ask Bernie, ask AOC, ask El Said, ask Mamdani, just ask them all. I don't care. This, all of these new DSAs that have won, ask them. Well, when the grocery stores, when there's rationing and there's no more food on the shelves, what's your plan B? Oh, no, then we grab the agriculture. No, then we nationalize and collectivize the land. You realize every time that's tried, it's led to literally famine and starvation. Well, not this time. No, we're going to do it right. That's the communist answer to everything. Just because it's always failed. But no, hey, they didn't have Zoran running the show. Hey, they didn't have Bernie. They didn't have Ed Markey. Come on now. They didn't have Obama, the dear litter. He knows how to make the land work, even though it's all collectivized in the hands of the state. That's the road we are on. This is step 1. And they're open about it. This is only the first wave. Step 2, have city-run grocery stores everywhere. Step 3, get rid of private grocery stores permanently. Step 4, then they go for agriculture and the farms. 617-266 and private property. That's That's when they go for the full, what they call the means of production. 617-266-6868. Susie in Georgia. Thanks for holding, Susie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, and good morning, Kuhner Country. This
Hi, Susie.
AM cardio has been delightful. So these Democrat hypocrites that have squandered the last 6 months refusing to pass the Save America Act voter ID, only to now offer food ration cards as if we're in a war, because trust me, this is a civil war going on right now. You know what? Here's my question. How long until these hypocrite Democrats convert their national food ration cards into their own version of voter ID? This entire episode, this entire fiasco this is unconscionable. We, the people, cannot count on our representatives. We, the people, cannot count on Republicans to capitalize on this. And yes, I did say capitalize because I'm a capitalist. We cannot count on our representatives, our Republican representatives, to point out how communism has not worked in nation after nation after nation. I don't care who they think is in charge and is going to make communism work in this country. Communism is not compatible with our sacred, treasured Constitution. We, the people, need to get the word out. We, the people, need to stand up. Now is the time to stand up because, again, we are in a civil war. Whether people want to admit it or not, whether they want to see it for what it is or not, the civil war has begun. And it is being carried out by these lunatics that keep voting for these communist, socialist, Marxist, AOCs, Al-Said, Mandamis, Kamalama Ding Dong Dumbass, whoever you want to put in there. But the Republicans are not representing us. We elected them to represent us. They're not. We, the people, need to stand up. We, the people, need to get vocal. We the people, need to stop this invasion.
Well, you know, Susie, the thing I admire about Mamdani, and I know this is going to shock people that I would say anything positive about him, but the thing about Mamdani, like all fanatics, he can't keep his mouth shut. Okay, the same thing with Bernie, with AOC, with Al-Said, with Ilhan Omar. Notice, just they tell you everything. They don't hide it. They can't hide it. They try to hide it, but they can't. Mamdani is very fond of quoting Lenin. When Lenin and the Bolsheviks seized power in Russia, 1917, Lenin gave a directive to communists, both in Russia, or in the Soviet Union then, and to communists all over the world, including in America. And they have followed this playbook to this day. Lenin said the world is ours. We will take over every society, but we have to do it through capturing the culture. And he said, you have to capture the media. You have to capture the universities, academia. You have to capture, at the time, there was the burgeoning, motion picture industry. He said, you watch, Hollywood is going to be the most influential medium in the world. And he was right. And he said, we have to penetrate Hollywood. If we don't penetrate Hollywood, it's going to be a losing cause for us. And that's why they established the Communist Party of the United States. It was literally founded and funded by the Soviet Union. And right away, they set up a branch in Hollywood to infiltrate Hollywood. And they're there to this day. In fact, they've only gotten stronger. But he said education is the key. We got to grab them in the schools. You grab them in the schools, then you are going to create brainwashed, indoctrinated, good Marxists and communists. This is what we're seeing now. It's been a couple generations in the making, but all under 30, for those under the age of 30, polls now show fully over 50% of young Americans, white, black, brown, Asian, man, woman, male, female, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. They favor socialism or Marxism. The reason why these people are getting elected is because they sound like they're young, to the students, to these now in their 20s and early 30s, they sound like they're professors from school, from college and university. They go, yeah, that's what we were taught. Yeah, of course, yeah, of course. You have city-run grocery stores. Yeah. Yeah, of course you seize the means of production. Yeah, of course you would get rid of prisons. Yeah, of course you abolish the police. Yeah, of course you get rid of borders. Of course, yeah. Of course we're a deeply evil, racist country. Yeah. Of course you overthrow capitalism. Yeah. Of course you choose and try to implement socialism and Marxism. Yeah. Okay, city-run or government-run grocery stores. The left now says, led by the Democrats, they are the wave of the future. To me, they are a discredited failure from the past and something that we should avoid at all costs. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Do you support government-run grocery stores? 617-266-6868. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 603. Jeff. And I sense sarcasm in 603. Jeff, this is a terrible idea. All of the black people in New York City are going to starve to death. Not because there isn't any food, but rather because, according to the Democrats, black people don't have and they just can't get IDs. And how will blacks get city-issued ration cards if they can't prove who they are? Because, again, according to the Democrats, they don't have IDs. I mean, brilliant. Seriously. It just shows you how pathetic, honestly, how stupid their entire argument is about voter ID in particular. So how are they going to get all these ration cards? ID. But I thought you said they can't get ID. I thought you said it's too much of a burden. It's too racist. I mean, honestly, they're so intellectually fraudulent and dishonest. Really, just a bunch of liars and losers. Okay, one more. This is from 508. Jeff, I'm a big fan of Seinfeld. I used to watch it all the time. You know, I got to say, 508, I mean, obviously you're entitled to your opinion. And I know it was a very popular show. It never did anything for me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I missed the point of it, or I watched a couple of episodes and I didn't care for it. My sister-in-law was a big fan. I honestly didn't care. I hardly ever watched it. The few episodes I saw, I was like, meh, okay. Not the worst thing I've seen, but I wouldn't watch it, religiously every week. But anyway, that's me. Jeff, there used to be a character called the Soup Nazi. Well, under Mamdani, we now have the Soup Commie. But at least under the Soup Nazi in the Seinfeld show, there was always soup. With Mamdani, there's going to be no soup. Yeah, pretty much. That's the Soup Commie. There's no soup. Dave in Wilmington. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dave?
Jeff, years ago, and I'm going to recommend you need to watch this movie. It's online, and you can also rent the DVD of it or buy the DVD. It's called Thief in the Night. Now, Jeff, back when this movie came out, I'm going to be honest with you, it's about the rapture of the church, okay? So in the movie, the rapture takes place. Now, all of a sudden, like Madani's saying, you need to get an ID and everything. They put this guy on the TV saying that you need to get an ID. But, Jeff, the ID is tattooed, which was actually the mark of the beast. Jeff, this is the beginning of what's going to happen after the rapture takes place, Jeff. The rapture's not too far away. Jeff, you know the scriptures, and your wife knows the scriptures. It's just a matter of time. And people, like I say before, Jeff, people need to wake up and take a good look at what's really going on. Because, Jeff, if you don't have the mark of the beast after the second coming of Christ and the rapture takes place, it's just like the singing. You're not going to be able to buy or sell anything. And if you don't take the mark of the beast, you need to accept Jesus Christ into the heart, and they're going to be dealing with the tribulation. So, Jeff, this is the beginning of what's going to be taking place very soon. The rapture's not far away, Jeff. This is just the beginning of what's going to happen, and you're going to have to take the mark of the beast. And this is what Mandani's doing. He's making these people take an ID card, but after the ID card, Jeff, after the rapture takes place, you need to take the mark of the beast, period.
Well, Dave, I have to say, I can just, I don't, when the rapture is going to come, that's above my pay grade. Dave, that to me, all of that is in the hands of the Lord. But I can just tell you this. What I've always found very disturbing and bizarre, and this is a matter of open public record. Please don't take my word for it. You can just Google it, It's right there. Bill Gates believes that in the end, everybody should have a microchip inserted into their arm. This is something Bill Gates says we really need to be working towards. The Communist Chinese Party, the regime, says that's their ultimate aim. They want to stick a chip in everybody's arm. Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, George Soros, the most wealthy, powerful, Neville Roy Singham, who's basically the front man for the Chinese Communist Party, a billionaire. The wealthiest, most powerful globalists are obsessed with putting a chip in everybody's arm. And the reason why, they say, is it's going to be like a global ID. That's what they want. They go, it's a global ID. So you want to do your banking? You do your banking off a chip. Anything. You want to enter a grocery store. You want to enter a building. You want to go to work. You want to, anything. It's all through a chip. And they're trying to sell it as convenience. 617-266-6868. Okay, Mike was just telling me off air that he finds Seinfeld very funny. And he's like, why don't you find Seinfeld funny? I think it's a hilarious show. I'm like, Mike, nothing personal. It didn't make me laugh. Yeah. All right, but Mike says he loves the Soup Nazi episode.
No soup for you.
There you go. No soup for you. At least there's soup. Say what you want. With the Soup Nazi, there's soup. He may not give it to you, but it's soup. With Soup Kami under Mamdani, no soup for you because there's no soup. All right, 617-266-6868. I have to say this. I can give you so many books. Okay, I can recommend so many books by some of the most brilliant minds, historians, and scholars in the history of the world, documenting the crimes of communism, the disasters of communism, and by country, by country, by country. Okay, I'm talking about some of the most brilliant historians on Soviet Russia, or on all these different countries in Eastern Europe, or on communist China under Mao, or, Cuba, or Venezuela, or, in fact, if you want a really good short book on just the disaster that was communism economically, socially, culturally, politically, spiritually, and the effect it had on countries all over the world, read Richard Pipes, Pipes, to me, one of the most brilliant historians of the Soviet Union. I mean, just a highly intelligent and one of the top historians to me ever. I mean, his 3-volume history of the Soviet Revolution, it's incredible. It's the gold standard, okay? But anyway, let that go. It's just called Communism by Richard Pipes. And it's a short book. It's very well written. It's not a dry book. And you just read it, just that little book. And you're like, why would anyone ever want to replicate this again? You know, it's like wanting a Nazi revolution. Like, why? It ended in such disaster for everybody. But here we are. It shows to me how ignorant young people in particular, and it's not their fault because they've been brainwashed and indoctrinated in universities and schools and colleges, but it shows just how utterly illiterate historically and ignorant they are, that they're repeating the same lies, the same disastrous policies with the same arrogance and pride and militancy and fanaticism as all these other communists did, and every single one of them failed. And that they have no self-awareness, any kind of historical self-awareness whatsoever. That to me is what is stunning. It's like, literally, it's like me saying, you know, let's roll out a guy, we're going to roll out a guy with a toothbrush mustache who's going to talk about the supremacy of the Aryan race, who's going to talk about a Third Reich, and who's going to, repeat, and we're going to have a one-party state, and we're going to eliminate all the racial enemies of our state, and, you know, and we're eventually going to start conquering land. And you're like, Jeff, no, we've seen the movie, Jeff. This doesn't end well, Jeff. That's what they're doing now regarding communism. To the point now, they're even rehashing all of the old phrases that led to such disaster and frankly, bloodshed and monstrosity. You know, my grandfather went hungry. I don't mean he missed a meal. He went hungry. My grandmother went hungry. My father, God bless his soul, went hungry when he was a young boy. No food. Rationing. A little bit of bread here. Speaking of soup, a little bit of soup there if you're lucky. Belly swollen. And they tell you it's the worst thing. My father, my grandfather, my grandparents said, you don't know what it is to go month after month, year after year without food. You have no idea. It's the worst thing you can inflict on a human being. And we're going to toy with this here in the United States of America? Are we mad? Again, you know, I don't, it's Mike Rogers, who's going to be the Republican Senate nominee for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. I thought delivered a brilliant statement yesterday after El Sayed won. He goes, I never, ever, ever thought that in my life that I would be running against an opponent who cheered for 9/11, who's openly backed and supported by Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, who supports Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, who says we deserve 9/11. He goes, I thought I'd, there's a lot of crazy people, a lot of crazy ideas, but I never thought in my life I'd be running against a guy like that. I never thought in my life that I would be talking about government-run grocery stores, ration cards, collectivization of agriculture? I'm telling you, I feel like, okay, Jeff, this is a bad nightmare. And please, somebody just wake me up. And I keep slapping myself, like, okay, slapping myself in the face. Like, okay, no, wake up now. Wake up now. No, it's reality. It's here. Now, these ideas are so insane, and they're so destructive, and they have been such a monumental proven failure. We can defeat him. Trump is right. He gave a brilliant speech yesterday. He goes, we will crush communism and socialism. But we got to fight. But you can't be complacent. You can't be quiet. You can't just sit this one out. You can't just think, somebody else will do it. We have to give them the historical, political beating of a lifetime. Beat them so bad that they'll never dare to think of such insane ideas again. But we have to speak out. We have to. 617-266-6868. Just my opinion. Lisa in Belmont. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
You know, the first soup Nazi was Al Capone in the Great Depression. He started the first soup kitchen in the Great Depression, and people were literally starving. After that, I think Roosevelt started the CC camps. It sounds similar to what your grandfather went through with agricultural camps. And those people were just tortured that worked there, 12, 13-hour days. But the reason I'm calling is Belmont actually has a food pantry. I went to school with the girl that actually started it 30 years ago. When it started, and I know several volunteers, it was primarily donations, and there weren't that many people, apparently. Now it's grown quite a bit, and the Greater Boston Food Bank gives a lot of donations as far as produce and frozen meats. We get a lot of donations from supermarkets, especially Trader Joe's and Star Market. If something has expired maybe 1 or 2 days, they donate things. It's not government run, but it hasn't affected any of the supermarkets. But I think it's a nice thing to have for people that are working, that go food shopping, but just can't make it. And it helps a lot of people. It really does. And they're all over the place now. I think every town now has a food pantry. You have to be living in Belmont. You can't just come from any other place. You have to show
Lisa,
an
can you do me a favor? I hate to do this to you. I'm up against a break. I want you to finish your thought. I'm all for food pantries. There are so many creative ways. Look, we're such a wealthy, rich country. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Lisa in Belmont. Lisa, you were making an absolutely superb point. In Belmont, there is a food pantry. A lot of the private grocery stores or chains, like Trader Joe's, for example, will donate produce or frozen meats to help people out who need help with food, to feed themselves, to feed their families. It's a very effective program. It's in almost every town or city in Massachusetts and probably in the United States. And you're saying it's a wonderful thing. I agree. And you were saying, but you have to be a member or a resident of Belmont to access the food pantry. Now, I'm just curious, Lisa, say I need to feed my children and I don't have any more money and I got to wait for my check and it's a couple days away. So I go to the local food pantry and they say, well, we want to make sure you live in Belmont. Do they ask for a driver's license? Do they ask for any ID? Or do they is it an honor system? Do they just take your word for it when you say I live in Belmont?
Photo ID, which indicates with an address. You have to show a utility bill, which shows that you live at that address, meaning, you didn't move 3 years ago and you're still using an old license. There is no income requirement. But the thing is, it works out better with that because actually you're getting people that really need it. Basically, no one's going to stand in line for like 2 hours if they're a multimillionaire, you know. It's not affecting any of the grocery stores. But like I said, this isn't government run. This is all private through the town, through the Greater Boston Food Bank. And it's a nice little entity in the town. I mean, even if you need...
Lisa, I completely agree. Lisa, if you don't mind me asking, and again, if there's a problem with poor people needing access to, you know, food, they could do more food pantries in New York City. That's an obvious solution. Lisa, what do you make of these government-run grocery stores? The left is now saying, and the Democrats are saying, we're going to have this everywhere. We're going to have it in Boston. We're going to have it in Philadelphia. We're going to have it in Chicago, in L.A., in Atlanta. They want it everywhere. And eventually, they want to drive the private grocery chains out of business. Is this going to work? Or do you think they're going to fall flat on their face?
My mind with this is chaotic. I think they're going to have a lot of problems. I think you're going to get a lot of people that aren't nice, that have mental illness. They're going to be police problems. They're going to be a hard time people running it, people working at it. It's not like a little town food pantry. You know what I mean? It's gonna create chaos. That's the word I'm thinking of. I'm not for it. I rather see the food pantries. I rather even see people on food stamps that can go to regular grocery stores and get what they need.
I agree.
You know.
I agree. Lisa, I agree with you completely. Lisa, very thoughtful call. Lisa, thank you very, very much. She, to me, hit the nail right on the head. You know, to me, I'd rather, fine. I mean, I don't want Americans to go hungry. I just don't. So, again, not illegal aliens. See, that's the problem. And that's what everybody's, you know, that's the elephant in the room. When you're a sanctuary city like New York and you're giving away welfare benefits, EBT, food stamps, housing, education, healthcare, all quote-unquote free, i.e. taxpayer funded, to an army of illegal aliens. Yeah, now you're putting a massive strain on the social welfare system for Americans. And that's why Americans are falling through the cracks. Because what should be going to them is instead being diverted to the illegals. So I'm with Lisa all the way. Oh, look, fine. Food stamps, go ahead. No shame in that. You're unemployed, whatever. You're a single mom struggling with a couple of children, whatever it may be. You've fallen on hard times. Hey, by the grace of God, there go I. But get the food stamps and go to a nice private grocery store. I mean, I can't believe I'm talking like this. Private grocery store. You go to a grocery store. And, you know, look, I'm not a big fan. I see how the food stamps are being abused. You see people with junk food and tons of soda. And I'm like, I don't think that's really food. But, you know, I'd rather you have, you know, fine, have good food, have healthy food. If you want a nice 2-liter soda or a little bag of chips, okay. But, you know, the way some people load up their carts, it's all junk. But what really gets my goat is when I see illegal aliens, and they're clearly illegal, and it's 2 freaking carts loaded with food. And I'm paying for it. And I mean, it's steaks, it's chicken, it's beef, it's fruits, it's vegetables, tons of soda too, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I don't buy like that. I'm looking around. No other American has 2 carts. They have 2 carts. That's the problem. So I'll take food stamps and pantries over government-run stores any day of the week. I just want to say one last thing, because this is so important. Because, look, America is the land of milk and honey. It just is. Okay, no country in the history of the world has achieved a standard of living for as many people as America. I'm just a fact. So we take grocery stores and the kind of grocery stores that we have for granted, which is fine because that's what everybody knows. My grandfather, my father, Grace's father, who was from the old country, from Italy, right during and after World War II, where people were hungry. And all of my friends growing up, Grace's friends, we all noticed and commented on the same thing. When our parents go to a grocery store, I don't know how to say this. Yes, they're shopping, but they're also, how do I say this? They're marveling as they're shopping. And I remember my grandfather would love to go shopping. Loved it. Why? Because he would marvel how many cereal boxes. He couldn't believe it. There's not just peanut butter, all different kinds of peanut butter. There isn't just jam. You want strawberry, you want raspberry, you want grape, you want blueberry, you want peach, you want apricot, just you name it. He'd be like, oh, this is incredible. The produce, he couldn't believe it. We don't just have apples. You want red apples, you want green apples, you want, whatever, different types of apples. 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of apples. He couldn't believe it. My father, the same thing. He would say it's almost to the point I'm stressed. He goes, there's so much choice, I don't know what to get. And that there was so much of it. For my father or my grandfather, a steak is a steak. Oh, no. You want New York strip, you want filet, you want T-bone, you want whatever. You want thick, you want thin. How do you want it? They're like, wow. Wow. Grace's dad, same thing. Grace and I, we were, when we were dating very young, she was like, my dad he'll go to a grocery store and we're like, come on, Dad, let's go. Let's pick up the pace a little bit here. You know what I mean? Like, let's go. We got things to do, places to go. And he would look at all these nuts. Look, you've got, cashews and almonds. And he goes, oh my God, you think we had this when I was growing up in Italy? Like all this choice. And she said, my dad would take forever. And I'm like, I'm the same with my dad or my mom. And I can't tell you what a miracle and a modern marvel the American or the North American, to be honest, because Canada is the same as the United States in this case, the North American grocery store is. It's incredible. Honestly, just the ice cream. How many different flavors ice cream? And how good some of them are. I mean, I can't eat them now because of my type 2 diabetes, but we just take all of this for granted. The bakery. You want small croissants, big croissants, chocolate chip croissants, bran muffins, blueberry muffins, chocolate chip muffins, cranberry muffins. It just goes on and on. I mean, that's at a grocery store. And we're going to throw all that away for some crap Soviet-style, government-run store with your little ration card? Like the Venezuelans in New York City are saying, are you crazy? Are you crazy? You get the ice cream if there is ice cream. You get the loaf of bread if there is a loaf of bread. No. Whole milk, 2%, 1%, organic, non-organic. Hey, if there's milk, grab it before somebody else grabs it. This is what you want for the United States of America? It's pathetic. It's insulting. 617. And by the way, the most devastating thing of all is it's going to bankrupt the private grocery stores all around them. So think about this. You're going to have less access to food. Who does that? 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Tim in South Dennis. Thanks for holding, Tim, and welcome.
Jeff, my friend, as always, I love you in a non-sexual manner.
Thank you, Tim. Tim, what do you make of this? Comrade,
Well,
the revolution is coming, comrade.
for years, and I've heard the story of your grandfather, and it's definitely a story that people, as long as they're going to keep walking into this den of communism, should hear. Now, didn't he, even before the communists came to power, suffer the indignity of the Nazis and the brutality that went?
Yes.
And then after all that, a man who just wanted to work his land, like I'm sure his father and grandfather did before him, come along and said, no, it's not yours anymore. We're going to tell you. And when he said, no, that doesn't work, then they throw him in the gulag for a bit.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. Now, these people, I know you hear the left who peddles this nonsense. Well, the only problem with Lenin and Stalin and Mao, they just didn't have the right kind of communism. It's like, what does that even mean? It all follows the same patterns. The elites are going to be wanting for nothing. They'll have no food shortages, no fuel. You're going to wait in line for, like you said, whatever is left. And I understand, like, when Venezuela started going south, they actually had soldiers in the grocery stores that made sure you didn't take one single thing you weren't supposed to have. I mean, look how it works. Like in North Korea, they're starving to death, and that little Kim Jong, he's a fat body. He's not, he's not wanting for anything.
Oh, he's over 300 pounds. I mean, seriously, little rocket man, he's over 300 pounds. Look at Maduro in Venezuela. Look how, now he's lost some weight. He's in prison. But when he was running the country, look at him. Look at him. It's huge. Chavez before him, huge. Why? They had all the food they could want and more. Because they had access to private luxury grocery stores. I'll tell you this, Mamdani's not going to shop at the city-run grocery store. You think he's going to go? No. So this is what I mean. What I don't understand about these leftists and about people like Bill and Sudbury is, can't you see that you're being controlled and manipulated and exploited? Can't you see they just want to control you? That they don't care whether you're actually fed or not? That, in fact, with these city-run grocery stores, you're going to be actually even more hungry and you're going to have less food? And on top of it all, say what you want about grocery stores in America. Not only is there an abundance of food and choice, but, generally, you're not waiting an hour to be at the cashier. Maybe 5 minutes, tops. So you're not wasting half your day just waiting in line. That's what the Venezuelans and the Cubans, and that's what they're warning us about. They're saying, you don't understand with a ration card. It's not just that you don't have food or there's very little to pick from. It's that you're waiting half the day just to get there, just to get, inside the store. They go, how degrading it is? Like what, your time is worth that little? Oh, wait. 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, just wait. Tim, when you start to play with the food supply of a country, you're really playing with fire. And there's some things you just don't do. You don't do. You're certifiably nuts. And that's what they're doing now. They're playing now with the food supply. And my prediction, Tim, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a freaking disaster. And the New York, already they're getting buyer's remorse. You wait till they fully roll this program out. New Yorkers are going to run, they're going to run Mamdani out of the city. Tim, final word to you, my friend.
Well, another thing you've always said, and people better listen because history proves you right, and it will always prove you right. Whether it comes in by force or you vote it in, you cannot vote communism out. Now, look how many people we lost in this country ending slavery back from 1861 to 65. Could you imagine if it came to that again, to try to throw off the communism and Islamofascism that's being allowed to take place here. You talk about it, make the Civil War look like almost like nothing.
Yeah, it's a Sunday picnic. Well, you're right, Tim. Tim, you are not 100. You are 1,000% correct. Tim, thank you so much for that call. That's why I'm saying don't let it take root. Don't. Nip it in the bud now while we still can. But that's just me. Marie in Maine. Thanks for holding, Marie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for talking about this. You got to keep the talk going. But my question is, because of our system of independent states and then united by the Senate and the Congress, let New York do their thing. We can all wash it as a cautionary tale. Certainly, I would never move to California, and I'm sure that if this goes forward, people are going to be, flying out of New York just like they have out of California. So let them do it. That's all I have to say.
Marie, let me ask you, in a sense, we warned the people of New York what you're going to get with Mamdani and communism. We warned them. They still voted for him anyway. So is it now you've made your bed, now lie in it? We warned you, we warned you, we warned you. Well, now you voted for the guy. So don't come crying to us. In other words, do they have no one else to blame but themselves?
I think so. Yeah,
that's... I hate to say that because I know there are a lot of people in New York City who didn't vote for this scumbag, this Islamo-communist. But I'm with you. You want communism? Okay. Now you're going to get it, good and hard. Marie, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Rob in Maine. Thanks for holding, Rob. And welcome.
Hi, Jeff. It's been a while since I called, but
welcome.
When I heard you talk about how marvelous, that was the word you used when your relatives, your granddad, saw the supermarkets here in this country, it brought back some memories, and I wanted to just share this. It's a personal story. About 3 decades ago, my wife and I toured China just as after Deng Xiaoping brought it out of the Dark Ages. And then we decided to take the Trans-Mongolian train from Beijing to Leningrad and Moscow. And that was when the Soviet Union was breaking up. And when we got there, we looked for a place to stay. And what we saw still brings tears to my eyes. This older couple, they were academicians, so they were fairly high in social status in the country, were living in this unbelievably terrible and broken down apartment building. And what they were doing was they would double up with some friends of theirs and then rent the apartment out to people like us with dollars coming in and make a few bucks for themselves. So we got to see what it was like living there ourselves firsthand. But the thing that almost brings tears to my eyes is we went shopping in one of their markets, and we had dollars, so we could go into I forget whether it was the GUM or the non-GUM one, but it was one of the ones that the people could go to if they were Russians. And we came back to the apartment, and these folks came by and saw us, the nice couple, and we had orange juice from Germany, real orange juice. And you should have seen them sipping that as if it were cognac. They would, and of course, when I think about it today, I still want to cry. And the elevators didn't work. The buttons on the elevators had wires sticking out. All this stuff. So I wanted to bring that up because I experienced that myself briefly, and it still brings it. And butter, forget butter. They couldn't get butter. They get this lard-like stuff that you put yellow coloring in and then stirred it up. That was their butter. And they were the nicest, hardest working people. And I just think back on that today with the orange juice especially. That makes me just want to cry, Jeff, just to let you know. So I thought I'd bring that up as...
Oh, Rob, it's a really powerful and very moving story, and I'm very happy you did. because it honestly it brings back so many. I'm almost being overwhelmed now with memories of my grandfather. When we would be at the dinner table, he was just like that. He would, whether it was orange juice in the morning, but say at the dinner table, a glass of wine or sparkling water, he would sip it, like you said, like cognac, because he had been hungry for so long. He appreciated food his entire life. You can also text the Kuhner Man 70470, 70470. Okay, I want to ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Do you think you will see rationing in the United States in your lifetime? Because that's what government-run grocery stores is going to lead to. Inevitably, it's going to lead to rationing of food. So my question to you, in other words, do you think the DSA is going to triumph? Do you think the radical National Socialist Democrats will eventually seize power in states and eventually the country? Because this is what they want. They want nationalized grocery stores, government-run stores, all over the United States. So, do you think you will see rationing, food rationing, in the United States in your lifetime? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle, it's all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. This is an email I got from Joe. Makes, by the way, a superb point. Jeff, when the World Cup soccer games were being played in America, in this country, European players were amazed at the abundance of everything under the sun at Walmart. Joe in New Hampshire. Joe, you're completely right. In fact, it wasn't just the players, although you're right. Even the players were saying, like, wow, we don't have that in Latin America, or we don't have that in Europe, or we don't have that in Asia. What are you talking about? It was the fans as well. The European soccer fans, they were doing video after video. They were like, look at this. Look at all the choice. Look at all the abundance. Look at all the selection. They were like, I'm overwhelmed. They went to fast food places, and they were like, look at all that food on the menu. And then, you see them eating it, they're like, hey, this is good. They're all like, this is a hell of a lot better than the fast food in our country. So what I'm saying is, even when the foreign tourists came and the foreign players came, they couldn't believe how much we have at Walmart and in our grocery stores. And we're going to just, impose rationing and throw all this away? When I say they're insane, they're insane. There's no other explanation. As Trump said at his speech yesterday, it's lunacy. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Mike, who do you want me to go to next? Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. Thanks for taking my call.
Bob, it's incredible, isn't it? I know they're playing with this show. Every time it happens so often, people call, the line is fine, suddenly they come on the air, and, we lose connection, or people sound funny, or they're all like R2-D2 or C-3PO. So anyway, let's see if we can reconnect. Bob, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, loud and clear. Good job, Mike. All right, Bob, let her rip, my friend.
Like the Democrats always said, never let an opportunity go to waste. There was such an opportunity here for let's call it just like the drug market, illegal drugs. We'll have illegal food. The van's coming over from New Jersey, loaded with goods. You're walking down the street, guys, hey, man, you want to buy a couple of loaves of bread for $10.50 a piece? It'll be just like drug dealing. It's an opportunity you can't waste.
That's a great point. And I think it's also going to be reverse black marketeering. In other words, there's going to be no food in grocery stores. So what's going to happen is you're going to see people bring in food from outside the city and outside the state and saying, like at street corners or in abandoned parking lots or whatever, saying, hey, you don't want to wait 4 hours and maybe there's not even a loaf of bread. You want to buy 5 loaves of bread right now? How about me throw in some milk? Maybe you want a little bit of orange juice because you can't get orange juice anymore at the Mamdani store? So they're going to start, on the black market, they're going to start selling food in New York City. Bob, brilliant point. Brilliant point. And by the way, Rick texted me, and I thought Rick also made a very good point. He said, Jeff, you don't think the employees are going to start stealing the food and then selling it, reselling it at a much higher price? Because everything is, artificially 30-40% below market value? He goes, they're going to see an opportunity for a killing. So when the food comes in from the back, they're going to steal it and siphon it off and put it in their trunks. And then say, yeah, whatever we've left over, put it on the shelves. Don't worry about it. They'll run out of food in a couple hours, but we can resell and make a nice quick buck, a nice profit in the bargain. It is going to be rife with corruption. They already do it now. The illegals buy, as Anthony in New Hampshire has exposed. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very, very quickly, because you need to be aware of this. Not only is Mamdani imposing city-issued ration cards or ration ID, so you have to get this card. They're calling it like a savings card, but it's really an ID card. And it's gonna they're gonna surveil you, track you in these government-run grocery stores, and they're gonna track what you're buying. And you're gonna be limited. Every week, you can only buy a certain amount of goods or staples. But what Mamdani is now also saying, and this is again part of the Democratic Socialists of America, their platform, which is again straight from the Communist Manifesto, is that you don't need so much choice and variety. That's quote-unquote bourgeois materialism, or bourgeois selfishness, or bourgeois greed. Bernie Sanders explicitly said, and by the way, Bernie's a multimillionaire. Bernie is a multimillionaire who owns multiple mansions, whose wife practically bankrupted a university in Vermont so she and Bernie could line their own pockets. So the guy who rails against millionaires and billionaires is in fact a multi-millionaire himself. Okay, typical communist fraud and phony. Okay, but let that go. And by the way, Bernie has multiple sneakers. You're going to say, well, Jeff, why are you saying that? He has multiple different kinds of pants, suits, shirts, multiple cars, multiple homes. Everything is multiple with this guy. Bernie gave a speech recently where he lectured Americans, where he said, why do you need so many deodorants? Just get one at the grocery store. There should only be one available. Why do you have to buy 17 sneakers? Just one pair. That's all you should get. Mamdani now, when you go to the grocery store, you get all kinds of different deodorants, whatever you like. Different types of razors, different types of shaving cream. No, one shaving cream, one deodorant, one razor, one toothbrush. That's all you get. There's no choice. So, this is from 603. Jeff, speaking of choice, remember when Bernie Sanders recently lectured all of us about how we as Americans don't need 23 varieties of deodorant or 17 varieties of sneakers to choose from, when all we need is just one? I thought the liberals were all about quote-unquote choice and your right to quote-unquote choose. I guess in their damaged minds, that only applies to the murder of babies and not to quality of life. Moreover, Bernie Sanders said that if James Carville didn't want to be in the same party as Abdul El Sayed, that he should go start his own party. Yet at the same time, he ignores us when we say, quote, if you want to live in a country where you can only buy one type of deodorant or one style of sneakers, let's say, I don't know, Cuba, China, North Korea, Venezuela, then you need to go move to one. See how they'll talk the talk, but they won't walk the walk. Well, yeah, Bernie, go ahead. I mean, there are many countries in the world, communist countries, you can only buy one deodorant if you're lucky, or one type of sneaker if you're lucky, or one type of toothpaste if you're lucky. By the way, in Cuba, they don't even have reading glasses. Forget one type. They literally, reading glasses, readers, when you get to say above 45 or 50 years old. When American missionaries go to Cuba and hand out readers, people are crying because they've gone year after year after year after year. They can't read because they don't have readers. They give out Tylenol and aspirin. They cry because there's no aspirin. So it's not even one type. There's zero type. Okay, but let that go. I want to read to you one more. Please, you got to listen to this. Funny. One person writes, Jeff, Bernie doesn't use deodorant. That's good. That's funny. This is from a friend of mine. It was on my private cell. His name is John. His family was from Lithuania, former Soviet Union. My family was from Croatia, former Yugoslavia. But, with our shared history, that's why he and I connect. And this is what he writes to me. Jeff, as you and I both know from our family history and the former communist nations, collectivists, whether they be socialists or communists, always frame their policies and ideology as driven by compassion and fairness. But that's their first big lie. In truth, their policies are not designed to elevate people, but rather to demean, demoralize, and diminish them into submission, into utter subservience to the state. Bingo. Now, here comes, I think, the brilliant explanation for this alliance now in the Democratic Party, and you really see it with Mamdani and now with El Sayed. They really embody it, of socialism and Islamism, socialism and radical Islam. So John continues, that is why communists harmonize so well with Islam, which literally means submit or submission in Arabic. The only distinction is to what or to whom the people must lay prostrate, either to the state or to Allah. But the end result is always the same: permanent poverty and servitude for most everyone, and luxury for those at the top, whether it's a mullah or a commissar, or whether it's a Mamdani or a Bernie. They are two sides of the same corrupt and criminal coin. And Jeff, and this is so true, The communist playbook takes over the privately owned food supply with the reasoning that the regime will fix it. But in truth, the regime always seeks first to utterly destroy it and then control it permanently. Bingo. They want people hungry. They want people rationing. They want to destroy the food supply and food distribution, because then they can control it and by extension control you. That's the long game that they're playing. And that's why Mamdani, to his credit, is saying, no, this is just the first wave. We're just getting started. The end game is we want the state to collectivize all agriculture and ultimately all private property. Remember, you will own nothing, as the World Economic Forum said, and you will be happy to own nothing. Linda in Medford. Thanks for holding, Linda, and welcome.
A quickie. I read, I think it was the beginning of this year, that Karl Marx had 6 children, 4 died of malnutrition.
That's true.
There you go. And he was pretty chubby looking to me.
Oh, yeah. No, he fed himself. He just didn't feed his family.
So that's my call.
Drop the mic. Because that's what communism does. I mean, you're right. His own personal life exemplifies what communism does to everybody. The elites, the apparatchiks, the commissars, or in this case, the politicians, they're going to be fat and happy. But the rest, we die. Either through murder, brutality, or starvation and malnutrition. Great call. Linda, thank you very much for that call. Rich in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Rich, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi,
I have 2 points to make. I have 2 points to make today. I don't think that they're going to prevail in setting these stores up. A couple of reasons.
Rich, do me a favor. I'm up against a hard break. Please hang on. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Mike, who do we have next? No, I want to go back to the previous caller, Mike. All right. Let's go back to Rich in New Hampshire. Rich, you said it's going to fail for 2 reasons. Please tell me why.
The first reason, Jeff, is this long-term loyalty in the supply chain. These suppliers of these grocery stores that have been around for decades are not going to want to sell to these government stores out of loyalty, number one. And number two, they don't know if they're going to get paid or not. Why would you do business with somebody who you didn't have any relationship with when you've got a loyal customer you've sold to for years that pays you on time?
That's a brilliant point. A brilliant point. And you said there was a second reason?
Well, those are the 2 reasons. The first reason, the loyalty in the supply chain. I'm not going to name any of the bigger players in New England, but let's face it, there are grocery stores that have been in business for decades and decades. They've got suppliers that have worked with them for decades. There's a lot of loyalty there in the supply chain. As a supplier, you only have a limited amount of product to sell, right? So why would you sell it to somebody who you knew nothing about? And moreover, you're not sure if they're going to pay you or not. I don't think the business model works.
Oh, no, you're right, Rich. You're completely right. Rich, I want to ask you, because obviously you know a lot about the business, and I thought that's where you were going to go, but it's fine. Your points are excellent. That they're going to make prices artificially 30 to 40% cheaper, not than the competition, but the market. That to me is just incredible. Rich, how can you sustain something like this? Anybody runs a business and you're charging 30 to 40% less. than what the market is going to charge, that means you're perpetually running a deficit. I mean, you're just losing money. You're constantly in the red. You're practically giving away the product for free. And obviously they're being subsidized, the taxpayers, us. So we're going to keep throwing billions and billions and billions into this. And then what? I mean, what's their master plan? How does this work in the end? How can you keep charging something so artificially low without it eventually just going absolutely bankrupt and kaput? Rich, am I missing something here? What are they going to have to do to make up the fact that they keep losing money and that this is going to be an incredibly expensive endeavor? What do you think the next step is going to be then for them?
Then they'd have to try to figure out a way to get taxpayers to bail them out, and that's never going to happen. I just don't see how it's going to prevail because of everything we just talked about. I don't see why any supplier is going to want to sell to these people because there's too many unknowns. Suppliers are, a lot of these suppliers have been in business for decades too, and they've been successful because they've worked with the same people and they know they're going to get paid. Why would you want to sell to somebody like that? And these stores can't work on these low margins and survive. There was a great example last night I saw on TV about how they tried this out in Kansas City. They didn't tell you why it failed, but it didn't work. It failed for all the reasons that we're talking about. I know it.
Rich, you're dead on. You're not, as I like to say, you're not 100, you're 1,000% correct. Rich, this is my fear, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, that ultimately he's so diabolical, and this is what, communism, that's what they are. That's what communists are, and that's what they do. He knows it's a losing enterprise. Yeah, you're right. And he knows suppliers aren't going to trust him, and suppliers aren't going to want to deal with him. So his plan is to keep funneling, throwing cash, taxpayer dollars, keep these grocery stores artificially propped up, and then eventually that'll bankrupt the local private grocery stores in each area. So now they're going under. And then Mamdani will go to the suppliers and say, hey, your local Kroger's is gone. Your local Stop and Shop is gone. Your local whatever, I don't know if they have Shaw's, but I'm just saying, indulge me. Your local Shaw's is gone. So the only grocery store left standing is mine, the city-run grocery store. So you better send all your supplies to them, and then maybe even Mamdani will try to dictate a price and say, and you're only going to sell whatever beef at this price or chicken at this price. Is he that demonic? Is he that crazy? Is he that authoritarian that he would try something like this? Deliberately bankrupt grocery stores, have people have less access to food, and then try to extort or blackmail suppliers into sending their stuff to the city-run store. What say you, Rich?
I don't think this guy would be willing to work that hard to drag all this across the finish line. I think the loyalty in the supply chain is going to prevail.
So you're saying he's not Stalin, right? He's not.
No.
Interesting. So you think, Rich, this is just it's gonna fail? It's gonna be a disaster like that one in Kansas City, and he's just gonna say, "Okay, I tried," and wave the white flag. Correct?
The guy's never had a real job in his life. I mean, he's just like Obama. These guys just aren't all that motivated. They have these great ideas, but very rarely are they able to carry them out. And I hope he can't carry this out because I think it would be a disaster.
Oh, I agree. He's a failed comedian. I'm not kidding. Job, like the only quote job he ever had was he tried to be a stand-up comedian. He was a disaster. He's the family embarrassment. That's why he ran for mayor. His mother he's a red diaper baby. His mother is a famous director from India. She's a diehard communist. I mean, I'm a member of the Communist Party. an admirer of Marx and of Engels and of Lenin. And, she's a huge communist in India. But she made a ton of money in the cinema as a director. So he grew up in a kind of, quote unquote, artsy family, father and mother, diehard doctrinaire communists. And they brought him he was born in Uganda. They brought him here. They gave him best schools, best education, the best, most expensive private schools. They threw him into the Ivy League. He lives in this fancy multi-million-dollar apartment. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. But he's a failure as a human being. And he tried his hand at comedy. It was the only thing he thought he was good at. And he was a disaster. He was a complete failure. So he said, let me try to run for mayor. And he ran on Marxism and Islam. And he stole the election, or his people did, and now he thinks he can run grocery stores. That's what we're dealing with. And Rich, I guess I'm looking at it slightly from a different perspective than you are. And I'm not saying you're wrong, please. I'm just saying we're just looking at it. It's like looking at a mountain, but from a different angle. That's all. You're looking at it very much from a nuts and bolts, food supplier, economics perspective, and you're right. I'm looking at it more from grandfather, father, gulag, persecuted and almost destroyed by the communist perspective. When I see Mamdani, I remember my grandfather and my father telling me over and over and over, the people who ran the Communist Party and eventually seized power, these were their words. They were misfits. Many of them were open criminals, psychotic, mentally unstable, or failed human beings. And he said many of them came from very wealthy families. They call champagne socialists or champagne communists. He goes, but they failed at everything they did. But somehow they seized power. And they wanted more power to try to justify to themselves that they had talent, that they had virtue, that they had ability. But he says you have to understand, there is no merit. It's the opposite of merit. So the worst people end up running your country, your life, and your society. And they go, that's communism. And I'm like, wow. And he said, that's why we left. Like there's no hope, there's no future, there's nothing. So to see a guy like Mamdani or this El Said or Bernie, who by the way lived with his parents until he was 40 years old. Over 40 years old. This guy never had a job. And has been, a politician, public sector guy ever since. He's never had an honest private sector job in his life. But these are the kinds of people that are communists, and if there's a revolution, they're the ones who, have power and seize power. So it's very frightening because they really don't know what they're doing. But they're so full of fanaticism and arrogance and hubris. In other words, they're both criminal and insane at the same time. It's a deadly mix. And I agree with you. I think it's going to be a disaster. I think it's going to be an absolute disaster. And the sad thing is, he's not going to pay for the price. Trust me, he eats well every night. He eats very well. No. It's going to be the poor people in these neighborhoods. New Yorkers are going to take it right on the chin. Rich, thank you so much for that call. 617-266-6868. Diane in Lynn. Thanks for holding, Diane, and welcome.
What about pets? Since the communists are hell-bent on destroying everything that we hold dear, are they going to not provide any cat food or dog food for pets? Or are they going to say, oh, well, you have 2 dogs or 2 cats, you should only have 1. We'll give you a little bit of food just for 1. Well, how are they going to handle things like that?
Yes, that's a very good question. What they start off with and these government, the city-run grocery stores, you get one type of pet food, I guess kibble, I think, and one type of, for dogs, and I think one type of pet food for cats. That's it. You only get one. But in every communist country, they eventually limit the number of pets that you can have. And after a while, it's just one dog or one cat. And pretty soon, it's even no dogs or no cats. That's why one of the things by the late 80s, early 90s in the Soviet Union, a good friend of mine, Professor Jerry Kelebay, he was my mentor. He was a Canadian, brilliant conservative. His parents came from Ukraine. They fled Stalin. He went to visit his family, the motherland, as they say. And this was still under the Soviet Union, but just the waning days. He said, what shocked me, he went to the capital, Kiev. He said, what shocked me was when you walked the streets, first of all, how filthy and dirty the city was. It's a beautiful, historic city. He said the communist architecture was horrible. It was dirty. It was filthy. It was dilapidated. People were miserable. Everybody was miserable. But he said the other thing is, everywhere you go, you just see wild dogs. Just wild dogs. Everywhere. And I'd ask, and I said, what is this? It's a bit frightening. And B, what's going on? And they say, well, A, people don't have enough money to take care of their pets, so they have to let them go. B, there's no dog food even if you want to take care of them. And C, they're cracking down. They're issuing mandates and ordinances that you can't own pets. So you just have to let them go. But the authorities are too lazy to kill them or to cull them. And so you just see wild dogs all over the streets of Kiev. So eventually, Venezuela is the same thing. Cuba is the same thing. So eventually, they limit the pet food, the dog food, the cat food, and then they're going to eventually tell you, if you want to have 2 cats or 2 dogs, those days are going to be, if the DSA wins, those days are gone. And remember, this alliance now with Islam. Islam hates dogs. In particular, they really hate dogs. So now it can't be done right away. They have to do it step by step. But if you're a pet owner, it's not good for you. Let me just say that. I don't know, Diane, did I answer your question?
You sure did, yes.
So that's another reason. Somebody should ask Mamdani what he thinks of dogs. The New York media is not smart enough. You'll see. He'll shock you with his answer. Or El Said, who's even more honest. Say, what do you think of dogs? I'm telling you, his answer will be, I think we should shoot them. Every single one of them. Shoot them. So anyway, thank you very much for that call, Diane. I appreciate it. Tom in Cincinnati, Ohio. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Hey,
Hi,
Jeff.
Tom.
To the previous caller's question, what about smokes and alcohol? Are you going to be able to buy it there?
No. He's adamant on that. He said no alcohol, no cigarettes. You can't make sandwiches, like deli counters, where you can, no prepared food, none whatsoever. What else? There's a lot of do's and don'ts, but no cigarettes, no alcohol, no sandwiches that you can, have them make, or chicken, or no prepared food. There's a couple of other things, but they're already rationing. I mean, the thing just got out, they just got started, and already there's stuff you can't buy. But I swear to you, Tom, you can buy halal food. He was adamant on that. He said, no, there will be halal. Food there, if you're going to buy from the meat counter, it's going to be halal. So, no booze, no cigarettes, no sandwiches, but the meat, it will be halal.
So, Jeff, I was telling Mike that there was a food desert in an area north of downtown Cincinnati, between that and the University of Cincinnati, called Avondale. There was an Aldi's that was there that shuttered, and for years it was closed. Well, a husband and wife came in, and through a what I call socialist public-private partnership, the city, the state, and some philanthropic organizations like Procter & God, they backstopped them for like $1.5 million to reopen the store. So everybody was cheering. It lasted less than a year. It opened in February of 25, closed in June of 26. And to your previous caller, I think, Jim, the guy that knows a little bit about grocery, there were 3 components that shut that thing down. 1, supply chain. They couldn't get enough food. 2, theft. It went through the roof. And 3, neighborhood violence. People were coming out of there and they were getting their stuff stolen, mugged, and so they shut it down. So you heard about the situation in Kansas City. I'm sure that it would mirror the same. And Madani's, I mean, they're going to find that, I think, in New York. People are going to, I mean, it's just, they're going to have less choices, limited choices. Theft is going to go through the roof. If you're a checkout person working in one of these government stores, are you going to pursue somebody that's stealing, 3 deodorants instead of just 1? No, you're not going to. You're just going to let it go.
And you're right. And also, people wait outside because you're waiting in line, and the concern is by the time you get inside, there's no more food left, or there's no more deodorants, or there's no more, whatever. So when people come out of the store, they get assaulted, and they steal the groceries. So, and this is what happened in Venezuela, in Cuba, and other places, and in Kansas City. So what you have to do then is, guess what? You have to put armed security. For example, in Venezuela, they brought in the military. And that's what Mamdani says he's going to do. If need be, he's going to have police or armed security. So now they're going to militarize these government-run or city-run grocery stores. It's going to be a disaster. I'm telling you, it's going to be an absolute disaster. People are going to be fighting in the aisles for 1 loaf of bread or 1 jug of milk that's left. People are going to be fighting outside when they try to steal the food. And you're going to have security there. It's, as one caller said, it's going to be absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. And I think it's by design, Tom. I think he wants that. He wants more chaos. He wants more anarchy. He wants more division. That's what he wants. And then, of course, they're going to blame, big food. And they're going to blame the grocery chains. That's what they always do. They always find someone else to blame. They blame, quote, the capitalist or the hoarder or the, quote, profiteer to justify grabbing more power and more power and more power. Tom, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. You're getting an inside look at how communism functions. And when you look at it, you're like, it don't work. And it's not just that it doesn't work. You begin to see how brutal it is to even try to implement it. Mike in Providence. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Jeff, thank you so much for taking the call.
My pleasure, Mike.
I have an interesting theory. You tell me if I'm crazy or not. First of all, I think we're giving the socialist group that kind of seems like they're running wild right now, taking over. I think we're giving them a little bit too much credit. I think what's really going to happen is I think Donald Trump, this administration, it doesn't appear like that they're doing it, but they are. I think they're setting up and they're putting things in place right now. I think naturally all the food prices in the market's going to come down. Gas is going to come down. I'm talking way down. I'm talking like we've never seen before. And I think the socialists, I think they're smart. They're not stupid people. They're smart. I think they're aware of it. I think the Trump administration is really going to be responsible for the prices coming down, but they're going to try to take the credit for it. I mean, there's no possible Stop and Shop, Market Basket. You know, it's not even logical to think that they could do something like that. In other words, like you mentioned something about militarizing the supermarkets and all the control of all the goods and stuff. Like when push comes to shove, whose side is the military really going to be on if that ever came to that? You know what I mean? Like I think we're just giving them a little bit too much credit. People are getting a little bit too excited because the prices haven't come down yet. But I really do think that Trump's setting up a system where America's going to be thriving big time. It's going to take a little bit, but I think the socialists, they're going to try to take credit for it, and that's going to make them look better. You think I'm like kind of onto something here, or you think I'm crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy. Far from it. Look, I think, to be honest, Mike, history shows again and again. Mags in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mags, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, and as always, thank you for everything that you all do. You're a very important part of my life every day.
Oh, thank you, Mags. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You know I love you in a non-sexual way, Jeffrey. And the thing is, I want to say something today that might go, like, people might say, oh, what the heck, Mags? But I don't really believe that, like, Mondani won. I'll be honest with you. How can we be sure that these Democrats, these socialized Democrats, are winning and not cheating? How do we know that, Jeff? How are we sure about that? Because in my opinion, I'm not sure about any election in this country anymore because I think it's all corrupt. And that makes me crazy because we have a big election coming up here. I really feel that we need to get rid of the filibuster and we need to pass the SAVE Act. And I think it's going to be one of the most important things that we do. Because if we can't secure our elections, we have nothing in the United States of America left.
Well, Mags, I agree with you, obviously, completely. But let me just answer your question about Mamdani. Even now, more media outlets are reporting what I reported. I think it was last week, maybe. Don't quote me, but they've done an audit, and they're only halfway through the audit, and they've already found 228,000 illegal votes from Mamdani. So 228,000 illegal votes. That these were ballots from people who don't exist. There's no social security number. There's no name. There's nothing. Or they don't live in New York City. Or they're clearly illegal aliens or non-citizens. Mamdani's margin of victory was only 207,000 votes. So there are more, even now, and they're only halfway through the audit. Even now, there are more illegal votes cast than Mamdani's margin of victory. So, in plain English, the election was stolen. There's no question. So he didn't win fair and square, which I suspected. And I'm not even sure this guy, Abdul El Said, won fair and square in Michigan. So a lot of these DSA communists, these Muslim Marxists, are winning. I'm putting winning in air quotes because they're stealing. So that begs the question, how really popular are they? Now, I can just tell you this, Max. This you can take to the bank. Donald Trump is salivating, and I mean salivating, at running against these Islamo-communists in November. In fact, he gave a major speech yesterday where he said, I'm going to make this election about communism because that's what this election should be fought on. And he's going to go after El Said. He's going to go after Mamdani. He's going to go after Bernie. He's going to go after all of these new DSA candidates that won all their primaries. So he is now going to absolutely tattoo the Democratic Party. And I got to tell you, Max, once you start exposing, let's just take El Said, the guy that won in Michigan. He got $115,000 now, we know, from Hamas. From Hamas. He's a front for the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a terrorist organization. And he's swimming in their money. CARE, another terrorist organization, has now given him millions and millions of dollars. So what you're seeing now, and by the way, El Said, like his big influencer friend, Hassan Piker, the guy who's got this big podcast that all these radical lefties are now listening to, openly welcomed and cheered 9/11. Now, Trump, unlike these, wishy-washy rhino Republicans, is going to take it right to him. And as Trump said yesterday, I will not allow communism or Marxism to ever win in America. And we are going to destroy them in November. I am telling you that for them to win, they have to steal. Because no one is going to believe that an open supporter of Hamas, a Jew hater to his core, a terrorist who welcomed 9/11, a party that wants to abolish Thanksgiving, abolish all prisons, abolish all police, abolish ICE, give amnesty to every single illegal alien, completely and openly open our borders up to the entire world. By the way, socialized medicine, free universal childcare, government-run childcare, collectivization of agriculture, abolish private property. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And you expect us to believe you're going to win the election? I can't say it. Trump said it yesterday. Bull crap. Okay, you know what I really want to say? BS. Bravo Sierra. So, Mags, the problem now the Democrats have is they have gone so extreme, so far to the left, they can't win the midterms. And if they steal the midterms, nobody will believe it, that they won it. Everybody will say they stole it. Because they messed with the wrong dude. Because you're not running against Jeb Bush or John Thune or these other losers. Trump is not afraid to take on the Islamo-communist threat, to call out Islam and to call out Marxism. And that's exactly what he's going to do. So I'm telling you, Mags, they made the biggest mistake of their life getting in bed with these people. And you watch. The Democratic Party, the establishment, is being destroyed in front of our eyes. And this fringe, insane minority that's now taking it over, this combination of Hamas, radical Islam, and these Marxist socialists, they're unelectable. I mean, they may steal primaries. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very, very quickly. This is why they're going to get wiped out. I'm telling you they're going to get wiped out. Hassan Piker, as you know, a force now in the Democratic Party, really the mind, if you can call it that, the intellectual theorist of the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party, very close to Mamdani, to El Said, to Bernie. He campaigns with them and he advocates for them on his podcast. This is him calling on all of his followers to kill what he says are capitalists. I mean, to murder them. He says the way Stalin and Mao murdered their opponents. He's a big admirer of both Stalin and Mao. And so he is on his podcast, and he's saying, and by capitalists he means anybody who owns a rental property, anybody who owns property, anybody who owns a small business. To him, they're the enemy. And this is what he said, quote, "Yeah, kill them. Kill those." I can't say it on the air. I'm going to have to clean it up. Yeah, kill them. Kill those mother effers and murder those mother effers in the streets. Let the streets soak in their effing red capitalist blood. This is the guy now. That's why Carville said, I can't coexist in the same party with this guy. And Bernie said, and I'll play you the cut, well, then you leave, Carville, because Piker is with us. So this is the guy that Bernie and AOC and Mamdani and El Said and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Ed Markey and Seth Moulton and Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris, they're campaigning with this guy. And this is the guy they're unleashing on college campuses. Okay? So murder them in the streets. Let the streets soak in their effing red blood. Or sorry, red capitalist blood. Now, I want you to listen to Trump. Because Trump says, I can't believe my luck. He actually said that. He said, these idiots are going in bed now with these Islamo-communists. They're giving us the midterms on a silver platter. Listen to President Trump. This was yesterday in a very important speech in Las Vegas. Roll cut 1, Mike.
And the polls were wrong again last night when they thought it would be a landslide victory for a hater of Jews and a hater of Israel. This guy hates Jews. Somebody said, oh, that's a little strong. No, he hates Jews and he hates Israel. Abdul El-Sayed. Can you believe this? This could only happen to me. Abdul El-Sayed, lovely gentleman. He's a man of hate. And now he's going around saying, no, I love everybody. He doesn't love everybody. Put him in office. You're going to find out what he loves. He doesn't love Israel. He doesn't love Jewish people. He hates them. He hates them with a passion that burns in his heart, and there's not a frickin' thing he can do about it. There's not a thing he can do about it because he hates them.
Because he's Hamas. Literally, he's Hamas. He's an Islamo-terrorist fellow traveler. That's what he is. He can't get, his anti-Semitism and his anti-Americanism is so deep. You know, it's like asking the Ayatollah of Iran to stop saying death to America. He can't do it. Now, Trump is then telling everybody, he goes, I'm telling you that the press is covering up for him. And they try to exaggerate his strength. Because, again, the polls were way off. But he says, we're going to win Michigan. He said, Michigan is now ours. But he said to the Republican Party, congratulations. Because now the communists who have taken over the Democratic Party are so outside the mainstream that I am going to run against them in November. And we are going to absolutely bury them. And I'm going to remind the American people who and what communists and communism is and are. What the communists are and what communism is. Listen to President Trump. Roll cut 1B, Mike.
Out a statement. Congratulations to the Republican Party. The communists want to take their ruinous and deadly ideology of misery and squalor to every state in America, but we're not going to let them. And I will say this, one of the things that I have seen with communism throughout the world, I see a lot of different places being president. I see a lot of results, too, a lot of bad results when you have the wrong people and the wrong ideology. But one of the things I see, and you see it here in the blue states run by Democrats, everything's filthy dirty all the time.
And he goes on to say, let me tell you what you get with communism. And that's what you're going to get with these people should they seize power. Roll cut 2, Mike.
And what Republicans should say is that at the end of a year, you'll have nothing but death, squalor, poverty. You'll have a life of hell. And that's what happens every single time. You look at Venezuela, where it was such a rich country 20 years ago, 22 years ago, and it happened, and we've really helped them, and we're going to help them. But, you know, they're lucky because they're sitting on massive oil reserves, but we are going to help the people that we want to help.
Now, He says, but they want to bring Venezuela here. And that's what the election of Mamdani and Abdul, this guy El Said, and all these DSA members in primaries all across the country, in blue states, blue jurisdictions, he says, I'm telling you, that's what they want to bring here. And we're going to run against that. And if we run against it, we're going to win. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
But every time this has happened, and you do that, you go through squalor and add the word again, filth, crime, death, destruction, embarrassment. You lose your home, you lose your apartment, and that's where the communists will take us 100%. When I watch Abdul, he's full of
You gotta, this is a taste of what the next 100 days is going to be. Now, listen to President Trump, because he's now making a vow to the country. And what he's doing now is he's setting the battle lines for the midterms. And I think he's 1,000% correct. This is not a referendum on me anymore. This is now a referendum on the radical communists and national socialists who have taken over the Democratic Party. Do you want communism or do you want freedom and patriotism? It's really that simple. Roll cut 2B, Mike.
If you remember, during my State of the Union speech from a little while ago, I made a very strong statement. I said that America will never be a socialist country. And I was right. What I didn't say is what they're trying to do. They want to skip socialism. They want to go right down to the bottom of the barrel. That's communism. They want it to be a communist country. We're not letting them have it as a communist country, not even for a minute. Not even for a minute. Together we will defeat communism, socialism, and Marxism in America once and for all. It's defeated. It's going to go down.
From his lips to God's ears. Let me just play one more cut. And he's now, this is going to, I'm telling you, the speech that he did yesterday, all he's got to do is now, that's his stump speech. And he's just got to go to every city, every state, like a national campaign. And there's nothing the Democrats can do to stop him. Roll cut 6. This is President Trump on Fox News saying, you want to know what the DSA communists really stand for? You know what they're going to do? Here it is. Roll cut 4, Mike.
Well, I think it's crazy because they're going to ruin our country. They want to, I don't know if they want to. I think either they're very naive or they actually want to ruin the country. No matter where you look, go back 1,000 years with different names. Anybody doing what they're doing and what they're espousing, everything turns out to ashes and junk and filth. You know, one thing I said the other day for the first time ever, never thought of it, but you go to these cities that are taken over by the socialists and the communists, they're always filthy dirty. They're disgusting. They're always dirty. And, you know, I'm a clean person, and people I know are clean. They like to, and you are. I know you very well. You're very clean. But aside from crime, aside from all of the other problems, no jobs, no anything, no money, they're always filthy, disgusting, dirty. And that's what you'll get.
He runs on this. The Democrats are going to get slaughtered in November. 617-266-6868. Look, I can tell you Trump's strategy, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's the strategy that won him in 2024. He is going to make the midterms a referendum on the Hamas, or whatever you want to call them, the Islamo-communists that have taken over the Democratic Party. And he's going to say, do you want communism and Islam? Muslim Marxism? Is that what you want? Or do you want to continue to keep America, America? And now that the DSA is winning primary after primary, and they're just getting warmed up, wait till they take Wisconsin. Wisconsin is coming. You got to see the lunatic they're going to run for governor in Wisconsin. All right? This Hong woman, Francesca Hong. This is going to split the Democratic Party right down the middle. And millions and millions and millions of Democrats who are not absolute lunatics are either going to come over and vote Republican or they're just going to stay home. Because in good conscience, they can't support these, they can't support these political fanatics. Who can support terrorism? Who can support full-throated communism? So what Trump is going to do, and the establishment's going to fight him, the Republicans, because they're stupid, and he's going to say, no, they're anti-Semites, I'm going to prosecute them. They're in bed with terrorists, I'm going to prosecute them. They want to abolish private property, I'm going to prosecute them. They want government-run grocery stores, I'm going to prosecute them. They want to abolish police, prisons, the entire freaking border. Okay? They're crazy. I'm going to prosecute them. And the Democrats are going to be on defense. Their candidates are way too extreme. And you watch. The blue wave is gone. It's gone. And that's why Carville and Bill Maher and so many other Democrats are saying we've just blown the midterms and we may be now watching the complete implosion of the Democratic Party. And Trump is now wielding the hammer, as he said in Vegas. And now I'm ready to smash that party to pieces. 617-266-6868. You run Mamdani and El Said, and I'll run Donald Trump, and we see who wins. John in Westford. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Hey, thanks for fitting me in. I appreciate it greatly.
My pleasure, John.
I'm going to give you a different twist because things are happening and have been happening for half a decade that involve Islam coming into this country and taking it over. They're everywhere. They're in government offices. They're in shops. They're in businesses. They could be your sister-in-law and you don't even know it. It's not a good thing. And the first thing that's most important is Jefferson, Madison, they were geniuses. They created a Constitution that saw this happening. And they created the power in the Constitution for us to prevent it from happening. And it follows the Second Amendment. And people take it wrong. They don't know what it means. They think it's about you keeping your guns, taking guns. The Second Amendment's about having a militia to protect freedom. Read it closely. Read it again, because you read it wrong if you think it's about guns. The guns are the tool to do that. The militia is mentioned at least 6 times in the Constitution. Nobody knows that in school. Most lawyers don't know that. More importantly, Proud Boys were arrested and convicted with the crime of seditious conspiracy, one of 5 crimes. And within the framework of those 5 crimes are the mechanisms by which we prevent them. One of them is takeover of government. And that's what they're trying to do. Nobody ever took over a government with voting. They take over a government with weapons.
John, just say wuss or don't, please, because that's borderline. I don't want to get fined. You can say, I understand, just say wuss or cowards or whatever. But no, I hear your point, John. I hear it very, very well. Look, I'm so happy you called because many people don't know this. You look at France, you look at England, increasingly now you go to Dearborn, you go to Minneapolis, okay, you go to Western Europe, but here in America, you see Muslims praying on the streets. On the streets, they take over the entire street. The street is closed. And it's all men praying 5 times a day. In Saudi Arabia, which is the birthplace of Islam, in Qatar, which is one of the most Muslim societies on earth, the United Arab Emirates, they have Sharia law. It is illegal to pray on the streets. In Muslim countries, they don't block the streets. It's actually, they pass laws saying it's disruptive. No, go to a mosque. You don't pray on the streets. The Muslims do not pray anywhere on the streets except in America, in Canada, and in Western Europe. And you know why? It is to assert and impose their dominance. It's a deliberate strategy.